Hello and welcome to ClockTower Game Studios. Today I'm going to be talking about how to finish the footbridge that we started last week, and along the way with that talk about the steps for sealing and finishing working with both the XPS foam, the popsicle sticks, and the coffee stirrers used to do the wood effects, and kind of how I did the paint on it, because it's a little bit different from what I normally do. So anyway, before that, with a little bit of apology for the delay, normally the video's up on what would be today while I'm filming this, the Monday release. This will probably not come out until Tuesday, maybe even Wednesday, but I've got some video editing to do. That's because we have company in from out of town, so I've had to juggle my schedule a little bit, but that's okay. It's to be expected, and it's not that big of a deal. Video's still gonna be out this week, and I'll still have one up for next week. It may or may not be up on Monday. Monday's still my goal, but we'll see. This month has been a little hectic. I personally am job hunting outside of the gaming industry because, well, you know, times are what they are. So that's been taking up a lot of my spare time lately. So apologies for the delays. Things have to get done though, so we can keep putting out videos and keep living our best lives. So anyway, before jumping into the build, I also want to touch on a model swap I did with an Instagram creator, Melanie, who goes by @HowAboutShorty. I'll have the link to her profile in the description below. But as you can see, she painted this gorgeous Celestial Alliance Space Marine for me as part of the model swap, and I'll put the link to the video where I was building, magnetizing her model in the cards above, so you'll be able to see that. But be sure to go check her stuff out, check out her release video. I'll post links to both her profile and to the reaction video of her doing the box opening and my reaction of opening her model. That was a really fun experience, and I'll talk about that again a little bit more at the end of the video. So without further delay, let's dive right in and get to building stuff. Okay, so here we are. I have entirely finished principal construction. As you can see, all the woodwork is done on the outsides. I've taken measures to cover up and hide some of the really bad gaps. There's still a few places, like the end right there, that I could probably do better on. That'll take some figuring out how to fix, and I need to because I have the same issue on the other end, but that's okay. Overall, the whole thing is finished now. We have whole bridge with all of the woodwork done on it. This mess up where I first added the side rail or the side supports, I didn't really think through how I wanted to do them, so I ended up trying to go under them, and I know that's not what I wanted now. So on that one, I think I'm gonna make a newspaper or something that hangs over the railing to hide it. This bit here could use a little cleanup. Some of these are a little bit proud and need cut down, so they're a little more smooth. So I still need to do a little cleanup, but I need to wait for the glue to dry before I can do any of that. Alright, so once construction's finished, the first thing we need to do is seal our XPS foam. So this will help harden and protect the foam because it's otherwise pretty easy to ding. This doesn't make it bulletproof or anything, but it does help some. So what I'm using here is a take on Jeremy over at Blackmagic Craft. It's a riff off of his Blackmagic primer. So all this really is acrylic hobby paint mixed with matte Mod Podge. In this version I use a light gray because I'm going to be painting over it with white, and I don't want it to be impossible to paint over. So that's why we're using a light gray instead of black. So I'm just going to go through and carefully paint the entire exposed foam structure with this mixture. Alright, and once I've done all of the exterior exposed foam with the light gray, where I'll be painting white over it, I wanted to make the undersides a little more dark and hard to see because there's a lot of mess under there that I'm trying to hide, a lot of hot glue marks and just kind of shoddy work that I really don't need to be exposed, and it really would kind of detract from the game table in general. So I'm just going to paint over the underside with the more traditional Blackmagic Craft primer, and this is just black acrylic paint mixed in with Mod Podge, and then when I'm applying it I water it down slightly just so it'll go over everything a little smoother. And I give it about 2 good coats of this. Again, this will protect it, and this time it'll darken down all the underside of the stairwells and everything in the interior bits to make them darker, harder to see on the game surface. So that's what we're doing here after I get the mess that I've made on my bottle cleaned up. Okay, so to paint this, really it's step-by-step simple process. I painted the areas that were going to be white, my very pale gray from Apple Barrel or Cerama or whatever it's called. That's just standard craft acrylic paints available at Walmart, Hobby Lobby, any big box stores. The part of this that's actually interesting though is the red paint I ended up having to use. So I didn't have a red color that was quite right for what I was going for. As you can see there in the front of the frame, I have a darker, almost a burgundy color. So instead of that, I wanted something a little more vibrant red. So I ended up mixing my own. And to do this, I base coated with that maroon color, did all the dry brushing for the white areas that I needed to, and then to go back and cover up the white on the wood areas and to make the red more vibrant, I ended up mixing my own paint. So the way I did that was I took some acrylic ink I had that's just very vibrant red, and then I added a little matte medium, a little bit of flow medium, and just a drop of white paint until it was the consistency and color I wanted. Kind of played with the ratios a little, and then once I had it to where I liked it, I went back and touched up all of the red areas with 2 coats. So again, this paint job is really simple. I base coated the areas that are white with light gray hobby paint, then dry brushed heavily with a actual white hobby paint, and then for the red areas I base coated a burgundy color, like a burgundy maroon color, and then I went back over that with my own mixed glaze thick acrylic wash. So that's how I did those, and as you can see, it really brings out the red in that and makes it pop real vibrantly. So I go through and I do all that. The hardest part of this was keeping the color of the red consistent as I mixed my own, which is why I did it on a palette there off to the side and made sure I kept reference of it. So this isn't that difficult to do, it's just a little bit time consuming and kind of a little bit of extra effort to put in, but it's very worth it to get the exact results you want. And as always, the last step of my paint job is to go back up and clean up any messes I made. So here I get a little carried away with the red and have to go back over the white areas. So to do this, since white is so hard to cover up with, I'm just stippling on undiluted white hobby paint to really be able to get the opacity that I'm looking for to cover up those extra red marks and to hide them. It doesn't work perfectly the first time and takes a couple of coats on some of the areas where the red really was hard to cover, but for the most part you'll only have to make one pass. Just be careful not to get any of the white back onto the red areas you're trying to clean up around. Okay, as you can see, I've got my bases done. They're done up in my normal concrete that I do. You can find the link to that in the card above. And also, the next step that I'm working on here is getting the stairwells glued to the bases. So to do this, I'm using PVA, and all I'm doing here is making sure that they're square with each other based on the street tiles I've already made. So between the two sidewalks, which you can see are raised above the actual street surface, there's 6 inches on the middle, and then the outside edges around it are 8 inches. So these fit my 8-inch by 8-inch grid squares, and so do the streets once you count in the 1 inch on either side for the sidewalk, and then the 6 inches in the middle. That is also 8 inches, although that's been less important so far. But here you can see that the bridge takes all that into account, spans the whole thing, leaves plenty of room for stuff to be under it, and still has a good feel. I'm really happy with this. It turned out really nicely. But here, as you can see, once I've got the glue set it where I want it and I've got the bridge put where I want it, I just stack an old out-of-print game book that I don't really need anymore on top of it to keep them pressed down into position. I put it on the middle of the span to make sure that the span holds the weight and everything down evenly. I didn't want to try and I didn't want them to get out of alignment by putting weight on either side. I wanted to just put it in the middle and be done with it. This is a really big step towards a fully playable board. It takes up 2 of the sections of my street tiles that I showed in one of the previous NeoNagoya process videos. The very first one, actually, where I talked about planning a big build and for an intricate modular board like this. So be sure to go and check that back out. It's a cool video where I talk about the planning stages, but this really fit in nicely because it's a big 2-tile piece of terrain that takes up a lot of space, adds a good bit of variety to the terrain board in general. It has a good aesthetic to it that I like, which I mentioned in the first video, which you should also go and check out, where I talk more about that. But anyway, the inspiration for it was some of the traditional bridges, like the red-railed, white-bottomed bridges you see in Japanese architecture and parks in particular. So I wanted to bring that inspiration into this, and as you can see from the pictures, these are actually things that I saw in person while I was in Japan studying abroad. I actually took those pictures myself. So I definitely wanted to tie this in again with like my experiences and kind of bring it to life. So that's where this came from. So if you like the video, hopefully you enjoyed this one, maybe a little more or less than compared to the last one, and you let me know. So the last video was long form. I did my commentary as I was filming each step of the process. There's a little bit of story time, a little bit of fluff and filler in there that there may not have been otherwise, and it ran like an hour, which is kind of a long video. So this week I'm trying to keep things short, a little more brief. So instead of talking through doing the entire thing as I'm doing it and kind of being delayed and slowed down, I'm doing voiceover clips and shorter clips of each step. So hopefully this speeds the video up. Hopefully it keeps it a little shorter. Let me know what you guys prefer. If you prefer the long form, detailed, like as I'm doing it, walkthrough, or if you prefer this shorter, more brief explanation with just voiceover clips to go with the shorter video. So let me know in the comment section what you think. Also, if you want to see what you're doing or what we're doing, if you want to see more of our productions, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you keep up to date with all the latest. You can also check us out on our other social media, and be sure to check out Melanie on her social media as well. Links for all that will be in the description below. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, most active on Instagram actually. So be sure to check that out. Again, be sure to check her out. Check out the videos of her opening the model I made for her, me opening her model. The reaction videos for that were actually a lot of fun. So be sure to check them out. And remember, at the Clock Tower, it's always game time.